Welcome to the latest Gramophone Podcast. I'm Martin Cullingford, editor of Gramophone. And today I am delighted to be joined in the Gramophone Podcast studio by two members of the superb and ever innovative ensemble, the Hermes Experiment, soprano Héloïse Werner and clarinettist Oliver Pashley. Hello to you both.
Hello.
Hello.
Now, we're here to talk about your beautiful and fascinating new album, Tree, newly released on Delphian, and in fact your third album for the label. A meditation on nature, on memory and change, drawing on composers both contemporary and newly commissioned, and of the past, but reimagined through modern eyes or ears. But rather than I try and encapsulate its origins and its contents, why don't I hand it to one or both of you to do so? So who wants to go first and tell me how this album, this concept came about?
Well, I mean, excuse the pun, but it did come about quite organically. Yeah, I don't know. It's sort of when you're coming up with a concept for an album, it's kind of chicken and egg, especially when you have a repertoire like ours. You have a fixed body of music, and then you don't want to sort of shoehorn in a theme, but then you need a starting point. So you kind of, we had sort of back and forth, I suppose, like listing the things that we wanted to record, seeing if we could find some links between them, also talking about what was important to us, I guess, individually and as a group as well at the time, seeing if we could tie that all in. And then this theme kind of naturally emerged. We had a lot of pieces we found about nature and the natural world, so we thought that would be an interesting avenue to start to explore.
Yeah. And when coming up with the idea of an album, is that sense of a concept, something central that ties everything together? It's a very important starting point?
It can be, yeah. I mean, it's important, I think, to not force things too much, and it's always nice when things naturally emerge. And I think we were quite fortunate that some of our repertoire, had this kind of theme of the natural world.
Yeah, and actually it was quite lucky that some of our newest commissions were directly dealing with nature and the beauty of the natural world. And actually Abel Silako's new piece, when we were putting together the album repertoire, we didn't have the piece yet. We hadn't received it. And we didn't really tell Abel anything about the theme. It was very much a kind of open commission, write whatever you want for us. And he wrote something about nature and the natural beauty of the world. So it felt very sort of, I don't know.
Fortuitous.
Yes. And it worked really, really well with kind of the rest of the program as well. So as Ollie said as well, we definitely had a number of pieces that we wanted to record that we've had in the repertoire for some time. And obviously our last disc song was released in 2021, so a little while ago actually. And so we had a sort of back catalogue of arrangements and commissions. For instance, the Laura Moody commission, which we've had for a little while, and that was one that we knew we definitely want to record it at some point, but we were waiting for the right time and have enough other pieces to kind of go with it. Some of the arrangements as well, like Le Rossignol by Jacques de la Gare, and some of those we've performed quite a lot in concert but had never recorded them. So we listed those, and then, as Ollie said, the sort of theme of nature emerged.
Well, I mean, it's difficult to know to start. I don't want to sort of pick the album to pieces because actually it all sort of flows so beautifully through. But you mentioned the Abel Silako piece, so let's start with that. For me, that sort of encapsulates quite a lot about the group. Firstly, it's where, as a group, you've often sort of seen where music sort of meets other areas and fills and pushed in those directions. It also is an interesting almost embodiment of the album in that actually the words are quite bleak, destruction and devastation, and yet actually in the music itself there's a lot of sort of rhythmic vitality and life, and that complex relationship that we have with the environment all seems to be in that moment.
It's true. It's a very kind of dense piece to perform actually when we were learning it. It's quite sort of 7 or 8 minutes, I think, but a lot happens. And we spent a lot of time working with Abel on really getting into the nitty-gritty of it. I think whenever we commission anybody, we aim to give them as much space as possible. In terms of the brief, we just kind of say, please just give us what you want, because we're asking you because we like your voice and we like your style, we like your artistry. And so with Abel's piece, it was we had this incredible, and when you see him perform himself, there's such a incredible energy he has on stage. It's just absolutely electric. And we kind of suspected maybe there might be an element of that in the piece, and we were lucky to have the time to spend with him kind of drawing out that kind of energy. And I mean, I hope it pays off. It's great to perform, but it kind of costs a lot as well. I mean, I don't know for you, Héloïse, as well, because you're kind of singing and making all of those other noises.
Yes, I think there was something quite really exciting about performing his music, but also quite sort of, I mean, he's such an amazing singer himself, and the first thing he sent us actually was him singing the piece with the cello. So that was the first version of the piece we got from him, like a recording of him performing it. And it sounded incredible. And you sort of think, okay, well, why do we need to do it? And what are we going to bring that's not there already? Because he's got such a unique style and a unique voice, and he's so into the music, and he can do incredible things with his voice. And so me as a singer, especially in the piece, I was a bit like, oh God, like, I don't know if I'm going to manage to be like Abel, because he's able and I'm not able. And actually, I find that like we did manage to find our own voice and our own Hermes sound. And the reason for that is, one, it's incredibly well written for the group, actually. So when we first kind of run it through, it was a bit of a relief that we were like, oh, actually, that works. It doesn't feel somehow wrong that we're performing this as opposed to him. And I think everyone was a bit relieved the first run through, like, okay, this works. We're comfortable doing this. And then obviously working with him and finding our own way into the music and the words and the intensity of it. But also, as you say, the lightness and the feeling of the groove, the dancing kind of element. There's the middle section where we all kind of use our voices and beatbox almost. I don't know if that's the right word, but I have this image of us rehearsing, and Abel was at the front, in front of us, just doing this dance and getting us to really get into the rhythm and getting into that kind of idea of the ancestors and imagining kind of performing in a certain context. And it was incredible. And now I think every time we perform this, or even in the recording, we were imagining Abel dancing right there. So it was a really exciting collaboration, and one, I think we took so much, we learned so much from it, and I think we felt so nurtured afterwards. But also what's nice is that now it is our piece and we will perform it. Abel won't be around every time, and it feels like we've got it, we've got this gift, and we can go out and perform it. And indeed, it's now recorded as well, so people can hear it and can hear our version of it.
Yeah, but it's so interesting because obviously normally you're presented with a score, and so you can create an interpretation from that. But actually hearing him so vividly performing it must have been a strange exercise. And as you say, sort of stepping away from that and thinking, actually, what can I do? What's my role in this? How can I make it my piece, not his piece?
Yeah, definitely. It's almost like with his music and his way of performing, it's almost more like kind of singer-songwriter style than how with a lot of pop music and pop artists, their voice is part of the music, is part of the song. It's like you listen to, like Joni Mitchell sing something because you want to hear her version of it, and then we had to find a way to make it our own. And you receive a notated score, but that is really, I mean, always with music, the score is only like one step on the way to actually bringing it to life. But especially with that, you can't be looking thinking, oh, is that a cha, or is that a ch, or and trying to read this like very detailed notation. You can't get bogged down in that because it's about like bringing it to life.
Yeah, and it was interesting because Abel works with a wonderful musician called Benjamin Woodgate, who essentially transcribes Abel's recordings onto a notated score and orchestrates it. I think Abel gives a lot of indication of what he wants in terms of orchestration, because you could tell even in the recording he sent us, you could kind of hear the different instruments already in there, even just on the cello. But then Benjamin transcribes it, and so we received the score, and then we had the score, we had the recording, we had Abel, we had Ben, and we sort of had to kind of create something out of all those elements, and that was really interesting. And I remember having a really long WhatsApp call with Abel. He was holding his daughter as well in his arms, so it was really hectic. And he just made me sing the whole thing from start to finish. I just received this call, and he was, I know a bit more like this. Okay, yeah, I like that. Oh, and then Alva started crying. But it was amazing, but it was so intense. He's very demanding in a really good way, but he really knew what he wants. And then it's like finding our way and really trying to serve the music and his wishes as best as possible, while also allowing ourselves to be free and for each of our voices to sing as much as possible.
So that's probably a good way to talk about the ensemble and working with composers and the particularly unique sound it has. So for those who don't know, clarinet, harp, voice and double bass, I mean, it creates such a unique sound world. Sort of everything you need is there and nothing more. So I guess you can have both that intensity but also that extraordinary sparseness. I think the opening of La Rossignol, for example, which just feels so sort of extraordinarily delicate. And when commissioning, when working with composers with this unique arrangement, does it shape the conversations you have with them?
Yeah, I mean, the process is always different depending on who is writing for us. But there will be the standard kind of thing of maybe Héloïse will send her range over just to, make sure that she can physically sing what's presented. And we'll maybe talk about certain extended techniques or... we just like to kind of keep talking as much as we can with the composer. Some people just like to go away and write the piece and give it to us. And other people like it to be a lot more collaborative, or they'll be asking us questions. And we always say, we're always at the end of an email or a phone call, as Héloïse just said. We're always available to kind of talk things through. And some people want feedback and, I mean, not guidance, that's too patronizing, but they want... be us to be really involved in the process of writing the piece. Maybe especially for people who come from more kind of experimental or improvisatory discipline. But yeah, I think it's different for every person, really.
Yeah. Well, maybe let's talk about one or two more of the commissions from this recording. Obviously, awful for you to have to pick. So I'll start. Marianne Schofield's Islands, which opens the album.
Yeah. So I guess that's another nice thing about this album is for the first time we have new works from members of the ensemble itself, so that they're commissions, but they're also by us.
And I should one from each of you as well. So.
Yeah. So and that's something that we've been talking about for a while. That we each write music and we really enjoy that. But I think for a while Hermes was okay. We commissioned other composers, but more and more we felt the need that we also wanted to, I suppose, bring our own music into it. And so with Marianne's piece, and same with Ollie's piece as well, which is a bit later on in the album, that was very much a sort of, if you want to write a piece for this album, you just go for it.
Yeah.
Again, like a very free commission in a way. And so we had, I think, a few months before the recording, or a sort of workshop day, where everyone brought some material more or less finished, and we essentially played through the pieces, and then you guys went away and sort of tweaked it. Or I think in your case it was pretty much kind of finished.
And there are a few bits and bobs
to sort of tweak. And Marianne's piece was more in a workshop stage, so she went away, and then actually her final piece was quite different from the workshop piece. And I mean, it's such an amazing song. So is Ollie's. I think it's been really nice to have that kind of new, I don't know, way into the group.
Right. What's nice actually is, I mean, I think this probably goes for everybody, I would say, who writes for us, but they're not just writing a piece for 4 instruments, they're writing a piece for us as 4 people. And I think that's especially true for, I mean, I can speak for myself. Writing for this group, I know so well how everybody plays and sings, and that's quite a lovely, special thing to feel like you're writing for your friends and friends and colleagues who you kind of know how they play. And I think you do get that feeling when with Marianne's piece as well. Like, we improvise together all the time, and just having that intimate knowledge of how somebody approaches how they play. It's just a really nice thing to feel like you're writing for such familiar friends.
Yeah. And also, I just remembered that about 6 months before that, we had some time together in France, a few days together, a sort of residency time, just playing through repertoire and kind of improvising together and coming up with ideas, and also in view of you guys making new pieces. And so that was also a time to start exploring ideas. And so everyone sort of said, oh, can I try this? Or can I try this? How would that sound to the two of you? So it's been quite an organic process as well. And obviously over the years as well, we've, as Ollie said, we've performed together so much and premiered so many new pieces that we've learned so much about those particular instruments and how to write for them.
Yes.
And so, yeah, but Marianne's piece is, I think it's like, it's somewhere between a song, like almost like, I wouldn't say it's a pop song, but it's got elements of folky with the sort of like, the structure of it as well feels quite like not just a classical piece, but there's something quite singer-songwriter about it.
Yeah.
Which is really cool and very full of colours, sounds. And the words are quite sad, I find. But that's okay.
Speaking of sounds, your piece Thunder Clears, I thought was one where actually the idea of the environment almost feels sort of written into the instrumentation, sort of the sounds of the harp, almost like a wind, and then obviously the clarinet, and that was that something you were aiming for in that piece?
Yeah, so with that piece, initially, this was a solo voice piece that I wrote a year and a half ago, and when I was thinking what could I contribute to this album, we already had sort of the theme in mind by that point. And I thought Thunder Clears would be a really nice piece to expand gently with added instrumentation, so harp, double bass and clarinet. Because the way the piece is written anyway, even in the solo voice version, is quite open. And it's a very simple idea that I basically, through sounds, depict the words of Ali Lewis's poem, beautiful poem. And so essentially the first half is the soundscapes, and gradually we go into the poem and then we hear those words. And so the arrangement for Hermes is essentially an expansion of this with the soundscape at the beginning, which is, instead of me just doing it on voice, I have the beautiful sounds of Marianne, Ollie and Anne contributing to that, and gradually then we morph into the song where Ollie sort of gently echoes it, and then sort of everything evaporates. So it's a very simple, quiet, hushed sort of piece, and that doesn't do very much, but actually it's great because with those guys I knew that they would do exactly what was needed, not sort of barge in with loads of extra things, just like do this sound and this sound, and that was, that's exactly what I was imagining, and it works. I think it works really nicely. Very gentle, sort of understated soundscape that's kind of ongoing and then gradually disappears. The sort of after the feeling that you have after the thunder when there's like a massive storm, and then it's just this after moment where you still hear little things, and then it sort of disappears.
Amazing. And your piece, Oliver, it's But I Still Breathe. So
yes,
that's when you were writing it, did you also think, I know exactly what the group's going to do? Nothing. Won't add anything extra.
No extra bells and whistles. Yeah, I mean, my piece is more sort of traditionally notated, written out. I had the first kind of idea of this almost like improvisatory thing that just unfurls and unfolds, and I think that the headspace I was in when I wrote it was quite reflective and solitary, and that feeling that you have maybe, in relation to the climate crisis, where you alternate between feeling kind of outraged and then helpless and then alone and then connected to other people who also feel like this, and it's all very conflicting feelings. But yeah, I think I was really into that zone of when you're kind of just sat with it, with your own thoughts, reflecting on it by yourself, thinking what's going on and where am I in all of this, and what am I doing? And it's kind of like a not a soliloquy, but like very reflective, and somebody kind of almost talking to themselves and going around in circles slightly.
Yeah, absolutely. Now let's talk about a couple of the works where you've taken, as it were, older music and given it a very contemporary, imaginative spin, I suppose. What's your approach to doing that? There's a certain kind of music making where you'll take a score and you'll try and perform it, and we don't fully know exactly how it was, but you're just basically sort of trying to recreate it. But that's not what you do, is it? It's a very different experience.
I think, for instance, the Jaquet de la Guerre piece, which is obviously a very old piece, or quite old, and from the Baroque era. There's like the original score is quite bare. There's I think there's a vocal line and a bass line, and that's it. So you kind of do what you want with it in a way. And I think, Marianne especially, she's so brilliant at that particular thing, kind of reimagining with almost nothing on the page. It's basically a composition, kind of reimagining and composing the whole thing with amazing harmonies and textures. And I think with those types of arrangements, I think we always trust whoever has an idea and a kind of vision for it, they go for it. So I think with that one, Marianne probably at some point said, I'd love to try and have a go at this, and had something in mind. And I think it's really beautiful. And she's done quite a few of those before as well. What else is on the album?
There's the Chaminade as well.
Oh yeah, well that's actually more sort of...
That's more transcription end of things rather than arrangement. But that's always I think it's probably individual preference and how you feel when you are presented with the material, whether you feel like you're going to go down a more kind of straightforward, just putting, the chords in the heart part and, that sort of thing, or am I going to interpret it more freely?
Yeah. There's the almond tree as well. I guess that's like a middle ground, because you also sort of reimagined it in some ways, but it's less sort of, it's still, I suppose the song itself is a song with chords and a specific sort of structure.
So there's like a middle 8 section where on Hannah Peel's album, like her band, go a bit crazy and have a little jam, and with us, I just, I recomposed the middle 8 so that it was like a Hermes meal. So we go a bit mad, but in our own way.
No, that's quite a fun piece, isn't it? It is again sort of a real juxtaposition between what's going on lyrically and then what's going on musically, and it just has that nice sort of very folk feel to it.
Yeah, and then there's Aralyn's Tree, which I arranged, and for this one, Aralyn really wanted it to be as close as possible to the original. So sometimes, especially when the composer is alive, Hannah Peel was quite happy for you to sort of have free reign, which was great. And Aralyn was very happy for us to arrange it, but wanted it to be very true to the original, which was also great. And then, it's a different approach and a different brief. So with that one, there was a bit of back and forth for her to check that she was happy with the end product, essentially.
I guess the very fact that the makeup of your ensemble is so unique that whenever you're looking at a score, you kind of have permission then to actually do something different. You for example, can think, which of the sounds from an earlier piece, an existing piece, am I going to put into the clarinet in a different way, and what can I do with that, and make it your own?
Yeah, definitely. But again, that's part of the conversation with the composer, whether they want it to be closer to their original thing, or and they're kind of maybe asking themselves, what's going to be gained from this arrangement. Is the piece going to go on and have a second life? Is it going to say something different? Do I want it to say the same thing? Again, obviously we can't speak for the composers, but it is interesting to see how the pieces do change when we put them through the mangle, see what happens on the other side, and then you end up with some that are very similar, others that go in a completely different direction. And
yeah. I think actually another one like this, well, like Erlin's is The Born by Nicola Lefanu. That was another one where Anne worked with Nicola quite closely so that it matched as best as possible the original. I mean, the original is for harp and voice. So in a way, that makes sense that then Nicola wanted the expanded version to be as close as possible to that, because already there is like similar instruments. And I remember, she also had a few back and forth via email just to check that Nicola was happy with it.
And that's also a nice thing, because you then approach playing each of these things in a different way as well, knowing that we are a kind of meta harp, or like the harp plus, like a big, we're colouring this very clearly defined body that's already there, rather than it maybe being more three instrumental voices interacting. We're like, how can we support the thing that's the main body of the sound?
A couple of times in this conversation, you've used the word improvise, and obviously some of the works, actually, that's part of them, as part of the performance. But what's a Hermes Experiment session like? Is it a kind of a exploratory creative process that leads to something at the end? Is that a part of it all?
Depends how much time we
logistics.
Fair enough.
We talked earlier about our a few days away in France, and we kind of all carved that time out precisely for that reason, because if you're not careful, we've all got other bits and pieces going on, and you're always finding that balance between having enough time to rehearse the things that you've got coming up in your concert, but also leaving time for the creative things to just marinate. And I think as classical musicians, we're not very good at going into a process without knowing the outcome. We always have to be thinking, okay, well, we're rehearsing this because we're doing that then, and we have to achieve this, and and what was so nice about us going away is that we kind of roughly knew what we wanted to happen, but we also left primarily a lot of space for the unknown, and because that's also what feeds into making the other stuff more interesting. I remember we did an improvisation. We just set a timer for an hour, I think, and we're just okay. We're not going to discuss anything. Let's just see what happens. And there are some interesting things that happen. There are some not very interesting things that happen. But that's also fine. And I think because I mean, personally, I like the idea of being more comfortable with sitting with the things that aren't interesting or that don't necessarily serve an immediate purpose.
Yeah,
that's also important. Obviously, you have to make sure you can play the stuff that's coming up in your concert next week or whenever it is. You need to go down that other road as well and see the space where maybe nothing happens.
Fascinating. And to come back to the concept of the album tree, the environment, and you talked about how it came together, and I felt at the end listening to it, it's both nature in terms of the environment, but also nature as sort of metaphor for how we relate to each other and relate to that world. And if you now, having put it all together, recorded it and put it out there, what would you like people to take from the album, from its concept, from its message?
I don't think I want anyone to necessarily take anything personally from it. I mean, it's nice if pieces of music, I suppose, have an idea behind them, but it's not necessarily. I don't think there's a message there.
No, I agree. And I guess I've listened to it a couple of times more recently, and I found myself quite moved by it, even if I recorded it. I think there's a lot of, I find it quite moving. I would hope that it speaks to people in certain ways, in the way that it speaks to me when I listen to it, but I'm sure it will speak differently to them because everyone has a different approach and a different I don't know, point of references and all that kind of stuff. But I think hopefully it brings some peace and, I don't know, like some good.
Yeah.
I don't know, it sounds really cheesy, but everything is so horrible everywhere that you think they could just listen to that for a moment and just be in that moment.
That's one of the extraordinary gifts music
Well,
can
I
offer
suppose,
people.
yeah, I mean, that's sort of a universal thing, isn't it?
Are you going to be, or are you performing the programme?
Yes, we are touring it throughout October. We have a couple of concerts in London throughout October. We're doing it in Hastings as well, and in Rotterdam in the Netherlands. So yeah, there's all the dates are listed on our website, so easily checked.
And what after this? What's the ensemble's plans? What will album 4 be? Is that too early to say?
We don't know about album 4 yet. We have some ideas, but these things always take time, and obviously also just to organise and
to continue to commission, continue to commit to expanding.
We've got a really exciting project for next year with a composer. We're commissioning him a Hermes concerto.
Right.
So this is not fully announced yet, but it's confirmed. So I might not say who it is, but keep your eyes peeled. Yes, it's a composer we've worked before, who we love, and he's writing a 20-minute Hermes concerto essentially for Hermes and chamber orchestra. So with Hermes being, I suppose, the soloist, although it will be very much like a dialogue between the orchestra and Hermes. So it's essentially a big collaboration with the orchestra.
That sounds absolutely fascinating.
Yes, so I suppose that's the big thing next year. Yeah, there's various things. We have a project at the Barbican Centre in December as well, actually around the climate emergency as well, in the conservatory space.
Perfect. Link.
Yes. So
really beautiful space. I've never heard music in there, actually. I've been in there and it's rather wonderful. Very warm.
Yes, well, it'll be in December, so it might actually be very cold.
Yes, or it might just be perfect.
We might just kind of
take the chill off.
Yes, it's an amazing space. Yeah, and they don't do that much music in there, but I think potentially because of the limitation of the space, but we will be fine.
I've seen art installations in there, sculptural work, so that's really interesting to think of them putting music in there as well.
Yes, I think we're sort of seeing it a bit more like that kind of event as well, because we'll be kind of dotted across the conservatory space, and we're working with sound artists from different parts of the world who are essentially creating sonic essays, responding to the climate emergency, and then we will essentially be interacting musically with those. So that's happening on the 7th of December. There's 3 shows throughout today, an hour show. And then, lots more things in the pipeline for the future. Actually some commissions as well. Again, I suppose we can't really say yet, but we have another really exciting one for a Wigmore Hall concert in 2027.
That's a long way.
Yeah.
But a lot to look forward to that.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
amazing.
Definitely.
So just a reminder that Tree, the new album from the Hermes Experiment, is available now from Delphium. Héloïse Werner, Oliver Pashley, thank you so much for joining me today to talk about it.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to this Gramophone podcast. If you've enjoyed it, please do search for Gramophone wherever you find your podcasts. We have hundreds more episodes featuring leading artists to download and enjoy. And do subscribe for free to future episodes. And if you can, please leave us a rating or a review. It really helps others to discover our work. And speaking of subscribing, Gramophone Magazine is published every month in print and online and is packed full of reviews and features about the latest classical music releases. And all listeners to this podcast can get a 20% discount off any subscription package. Simply visit gramophone.co.uk/subscribe and enter the code podcast20 in the checkout. And do join us again next week for another Gramophone podcast.